Project Axum DP, made from the 2020 Schwinn Axum DP, probably the best big box bike that Schwinn's ever released up to this point. It's pretty awesome out of the box. I'll put a link down in the description to my original review so you can catch up if you haven't made it this far into the channel yet. But the important thing to know is that the DP stands for dropper post, and if you don't know what a dropper post is, well, it does this. Now, I've had it in project form for quite a few rides now, and I'm going to go over everything that I've modified, but first I'm going to start backwards with what's been retained from the stock bike. Obviously, the factory Exaform dropper post is still in place, along with its quick release seat post clamp. I did have a different one on here, but I needed it for something else, so it's quick release again. I kept the factory wheels, and by wheels I'm referring to the hubs, the spokes, and the rims. As too are the factory Schwinn branded brake rotors, and the rear half of the drivetrain. It's still Axe powering that 8-speed cassette. That's all factory. And all those things work well enough for the most part to keep, at least for stage 1. But this is a project bike, so there are changes. Like up top, where everything but the shifter and the dropper control, they're new. And you'll quickly see that there's a theme, a JG Bike theme. JG Bike, they're an authorized reseller for many brands like Shimano. I'm talking local bike shop level Shimano stuff. But it turns out they make parts under their own brand too, like these handlebars. And early on, I've been really impressed by these because often the finish on handlebars, even on expensive ones, they tend to scratch easily when sliding components on and off. So far though, this finish has proven to be very tough. Any marks wipe right away. Originally, these were 780 millimeters, but I cut them down to 740, which was easy thanks to the sizing guide marks. So impressed was I out of the box with these bars that I didn't want to put generic grips on them, so I used race face half Nelsons. Grips are usually a safe place to cheap out on a bike. You can spend not much and get good grips, but these are nice and worth the extra few dollars. At least for something like Project Axum DP. I talked about sliding things on and off the bars and how that can mar them up, and I did that with the brakes here because I ended up with these Shimano MT200s, trusty MT200s. I used them a lot, but I had a higher end set for this bike. But they won't work here because of this factory Axe shifter, because down low it gets kind of beefy. And my I-spec brakes that I was going to put here, well, that beefiness, it gets in the way. So MT200s, which is fine and still an improvement over the factory mechanicals. Back to the theme, JG Bike bars meet JG Bike stem. This is a 35mm stem with a 0 degree offset and a bar matching black finish, and super affordable. Links to all the parts I've used down in the description. I swapped out the headset like I do with all these tapered head tube Schwinns, and I used a fun sealed bearing headset. Upper and lower for the new tapered fork, which is an SR Sun Tour of Pixon. This checks all the boxes for this build, meaning it works with quick release wheels. It has 120mm of travel and enough room for those 29 by 2.60 tires. It's also an air fork. The only trade-off, the one I could find, had a remote lockout, and that's a part I couldn't use because the remote for the dropper post is where that needs to be. Not a big deal because I like a Pixon's very underrated forks, and in these times of fork shortage, it's amazing to run across anything, so I was happy to get this. And two, I need a little bit more room because of the more aggressive knobs on these Maxxis Minion DHF tires. They're 29 by 2.60 like the factory tires, but those knobs do add more width. They're also tubeless ready, but I do want to mention one thing. I did install this setup as tubeless, but contrary to what you hear on the internet, the factory wheels are not officially tubeless ready, and tubeless ready means more than just rim tape, a tubeless valve, and new tires. So this is the poor man's tubeless, and you may have noticed there are DHFs on the front and the rear instead of the customary DHR on the rear. That's an order snafu on my part. Now I've already mentioned that the rear half of the drivetrain is factory, but that's the rear half. Up front, I changed it all. Starting with the pedals, which are race face Chesters, legit. And another theme part, the crank set, and these are new to KevCentral, JG Bike branded crank sets, a straight up knockoff of some Shimano crank sets, and I like the look of these, no silver machined areas like the IXF, that upsets some users. These are cheap, less than $40, but don't let the price scare you. This kit includes crank arms, an external bearing bottom bracket, and a chain ring. You don't get to choose the chain ring size. As a matter of fact, I ordered the one that's on the bike here, a 32 tooth oval, also JG Bike, and this oval is why I left the rear setup stock, because I want to compare this oval 32 versus the round 30. I think I've put all my money in the right places. This is a budget-minded setup, but I think it's going to add to the Axum experience and hopefully answer some questions. Some cheap tubeless questions and some oval questions. And right away, it was that oval chainring that let itself be known. Now, this isn't the most exciting of intro shots into riding, but important, because right away, I kept slipping off the pedals and couldn't figure out what it was, and it ended up being the cadence with an oval. It's more like galloping than a smooth up and down. So there is a learning curve, but once that's in check, I can confirm that climbing is improved as our transition from downhill to up. I can even go into a hill in a higher gear and muscle my way through it. I can assure you that this would not be the case on a factory round 32 tooth or even a round 30 tooth. This is just easier to climb with, plain and simple. Not to mention there's lots of rolling resistance here because I'm running those tubeless tires at a very low air pressure. A win so far, and it gets better because going from a standstill up to speed, there's a higher top speed with the 32 tooth, and I knew that was going to be the case, but it's easier to get to top speed and there's more of it. Now, I didn't clock anything, but I would say there's easily a gained 5 miles per hour on the top end. That is given the same effort. Again, amazing considering I'm rolling around on so little air pressure in these tires. Of course, some of this could be weight savings. I have the bike down to 32.5 pounds with the new parts. So along with the oval assist for climbing and speed, the tires not only help out with both, but they're also good on curves and even for absorbing bumps better. Even with these remaining factory parts, this is so impressive to me that there's this much improvement. I thought I wouldn't get here until stage 2. And I think the ELPHNT also approves because there's a new synergy up front between the fork and the tires. Another interesting takeaway is that no matter the terrain, I've had no chain drops, and I'll swear, I think the rear end is more quiet now. So the oval may be more helpful for more than just climbing and speed. Now before I sum all this up, let me stress one thing, that I've done this on my own accord, but I don't recommend anyone use these wheel sets in a tubeless configuration until we're told otherwise officially. That said, I have enjoyed this tubeless setup, and I'm not even going to get into the tubeless mess argument. That's a whole other thing. And while we're talking about tires and wheels, let me mention I've been asked fairly regularly if larger tires will fit on the Axum. My response is, why would you need larger tires? If you want something bigger, go with something like these Minions with more aggressive tread. Let's talk about some of the other parts. Of course, the race face chesters, we all know these are great pedals, so they're no different here. And I gotta admit, I'm more impressed with the oval than I thought I was going to be, but I will follow up on the potential downsides to an oval chainring because there are a couple. And from the chainring to the crankset, all the way up to the bars and the stem, I've had zero issues with any of these JG Bike parts. I will definitely use more of them in future builds. Good brand name forks are hard to come by right now, and this ELPHNT, I think it's a perfect fork for this bike, plus the extra 20 millimeters of travel gives a slight boost to the geometry. The remaining factory parts, aside from the dropper and the frame, would have been swapped out in stage 2. Project Axum stage 1, it's already among the best of the big box bikes, at least for a Walmart budget bikes. So stage 1, very much a success, but you may have noticed I said would have, because there won't be a stage 2, at least not with this 2020 Axum DP. That's because of another bike, a 2021 addition to the Schwinn line, and this one packs a big box bike hater argument nullifying feature. So stay tuned because I'm going to be unveiling this very soon, and it's going to be in stores this May. If you're excited, comment below, and also comment with what you think about the bike in this video, Project Axum DP based on the 2020 Axum DP. And do you like the oval chain rings, the JG Bike parts? Let me hear your opinions. And also give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, make sure you have that notification bell active, and also 5 bikes in 5 days, that starts within the next 48 hours. Thanks for watching KevCentral, and have a great day.